Hey guys, how you doing? So today I wanted to talk about money mindset. And it's funny, I had the honor of having Rochelle Adamson from Rochelle Adamson Budgets on my channel last week on our live. And so when playing back that conversation really had me thinking about two things. First of all, she's awesome, but that's like besides the point. First thing was that when we were talking about identity theft, we were talking from a place of stress, right? It had just happened to me, and luckily I was able to catch it on time. Thank goodness. But with her, she went through a lot to try to clear up her credit and to clear everything up so that she can move forward. So when she was talking about identity theft, she was coming also from a place of stress. And you can tell in our voices, like we were telling our stories, and it was to obviously pass on the information so that hopefully that never happens to any of you. But when we started answering budget questions, then all of a sudden, like we both lit up. We were answering questions that some of my subscribers had left on my YouTube channel and on Instagram. So we lit up because we're both in a good place financially, right? We've both paid off our debt. We both have an emergency fund. And Rochelle is halfway through paying off her mortgage, which every time I say it, I light up because I can't wait to be able to say that for myself as well. So, oh, and I see, hi guys. I see you guys popping up with your comments. How you doing? So that really got me thinking about money mindset, right? I mean, how we think about money, does it really affect us financially? So I came across this quote from Oprah Winfrey, and I was like, I that got me really into this whole research thing of money mindset. I went into like the internet hole. When I get something like on my mind, like I want to just find out as much about it as possible. So I thought this was great. So Oprah said, be thankful for what you have, and you'll end up having more. If you concentrate on what you don't have, you will never have enough. So that's what got me into this whole money mindset concept. And I'm just going to go to the comments real quick to say hi to you guys. Hi, Tony Ann. How you doing? She says she's coming all the way from New Jersey. She's so funny. Hi, Wanda. Hi, Jan. How are you? Let me see. Oh, the financial Latina. Hi, Jackie. How you doing? I love that name now. Okay. All right, guys. So I'm going to get into this now. So I have my notes here. So if you hear paper, that's what it's all about. So I found out that there are three types of money mindsets, and I'd love to hear from you guys where you are or where you've ever been. So the first one is a scarcity mindset, and I'm just looking down because I want to make sure I get it right. So a scarcity mindset is when you're afraid you don't have enough money to get by, or when you have money and you fear that it's going to be taken away with the next thing around the corner, like a medical problem or a loss of employment or a household emergency. Then there's the victim mentality, which I don't like that name. Honestly, they really should think of another way of saying it. But that's when you feel like you're never going to get ahead on your finances, where you feel like every time you get ahead, something happens, which honestly, who hasn't been there, right? And you're always thinking that you're going to live paycheck to paycheck and that you're always going to be in debt. When I heard that, it reminded me of an attorney that I used to work for. I'm a family law paralegal. And before I worked at this firm, I worked at another one. And she was single, right? And she had no kids, no family ties that were draining her financially. And yet she told me that she's always going to be in debt. That was just something she would always say, like, I'm always going to be in debt. I'm always going to have student loan debt. And I thought to myself, like, wow, like, you know, she makes three times my income, I'm assuming, probably even more than that. And that's how she felt. So when I heard those words, it made me think of her. She was lovely. And then, of course, the last one is the abundant mindset. And that's when you have to be grateful for what you have. And gratitude can help you feel blessed and help you feel positive. And no matter where you are financially, which I thought that was really interesting because, like, that, I feel like anybody can be grateful for what they have, but to actually see that there's a mindset financially for when you feel grateful, but you don't have your money right yet, I thought that was interesting. And believing that you can change your life for the better no matter where you are financially. So after reading that, I have to tell you, and I'm just gonna just check here real quick. Hi, Granny Pepper. After reading that, it resonated with me for many reasons. So they say that when your money mindset is actually like programmed in you, like when you're born, and what they mean is that it depends on what circumstances you were living in when you were little. So, like, was money something that was talked about positively? Like, was it talked about negatively? Or was it something that came from stress, right? So, for me, I lived in a third floor apartment building and we did not have a backyard. My backyard was a 6 by 6 metal fire escape landing. And to me, it was awesome because I could look up at the stars. But anyway, so money was never something that was talked about directly with me until I was in high school. But I knew that money was a stressful thing for my parents. My dad wasn't around much. He was working all the time. So I was really raised by my mom and my grandmother. And my mom was the, I mean, if I could be the kind of mom that she was, I feel like I'd be successful in life right there. She was home with us during the day. She'd wake up at 5 in the morning, get us ready for school. Then she would, then when we were gone, she'd take care of the house. We'd come home from school at 3 o'clock. We'd already have dinner ready early. My grandmother would take over after we'd done our homework. And my mom would then go and do the night shift. So money was always tight with us. We really, if I were to classify, I don't like saying like low, middle, or high, but I believe like we were like low income, even with two parents working as hard as they were. So money for us was, I knew it was a place of stress because I saw it in my parents. And so we never were like the type of kids that would ask for anything because we knew that the answer wouldn't be no. And I didn't want to put that burden on my mom to have her feel bad that she had to say no to me for something. So when I was in high school, I'll never forget, every year I was in the band. And yes, it's cool. and the band would go on trips every year. And so, they went to Florida. I didn't even ask my mom. I didn't ask her at all. They went, I forgot where they went the sophomore year, but junior year, they went to Virginia. And the band leader called my mom and said, Debbie hasn't gone on any trips this year. And she was like, what are you talking about? What trips? And when I came home, she said to me, why haven't you talked to me about it? I'm like, because we don't have money. Like we don't have anything. I know we don't have anything. So I'm not going to ask for anything. So when I was reading these mindsets, it's like, yeah, I was raised with a scarcity mindset. I knew that any moment something could happen. And we moved a few times too because of it. So, and I'm not complaining because my mom was just made everything so happy no matter what. It's like, even though I knew where we were at, like it was never something that was like told to me or forced on me or, like in your face. Like she wanted us to have a childhood. She was amazing. Anyway, let me just, I don't want to leave you guys hanging. I love your comments. And then sometimes I get to them too late and I don't know what you're referring to. Oh, you guys are saying hi to each other. I love the community that we have here, honestly. So then I was thinking about the victim mentality, which again, I don't like that name, but here goes. I, in my late 20s, was in a relationship and with someone that thought that they wanted the finer things in life. and I, of course, was the one that was paying for it, right? Birthdays, Christmases, parties, things like that. So I accumulated credit card debt because back then I didn't have a grasp of any financial knowledge, to be honest with you. I always worked full time. I always worked hard. But when it came to like knowledge of how credit works and debt and debt repayment and debt freedom, which can you tell how happy I am to talk about that? And so anyway, so back then I was really naive, right? Late 20s and then early 30s. I was in a relationship that I ended up happily getting divorced out of. But when I looked around, I'm in a house that we couldn't afford. Right now, it's just me and my two little kids. So we were in a house that I never chose. I was in a relationship when back then, I'm a completely different person, thank God. But back then, I was in a relationship where I really didn't have a voice. So I ended up in a house I didn't like. That was way too expensive. It had vaulted ceilings. That's the thing I hated the most about it. And I was paying the heat because in New Jersey, the winters get cold. But of course, what does heat does? Heat rises, right? So then what happens? I'm heating my ceiling and the house was always cold. But anyway, so I ended up in a house I didn't like. And it was just me and my mom and my two little kids. They were 4 and 5 at the time. And I didn't want to burden them with anything at all, like just like my mom did with me. It's funny how the cycle comes around. And it's hard to talk about. But so when I had to like make everything as nice as possible for the kids, doing things for free, packing lunches, things like that. I wanted to keep their spirits high. But meanwhile, I am getting into more and more debt because I am getting into payment plans with the utility companies, again, trying to stay afloat, which I couldn't, and putting groceries on my credit cards. So when I finally was able to get my feet on the ground and I busted my butt, I did overtime at work. I had a neighbor who fell ill, and so his son paid me to make meals for him. And I did it as like a side thing, but every single cent, if anyone has ever lost their job or is living paycheck to paycheck, you know what I'm talking about. It is a scarcity mentality, but it's also like a victim mentality too, because you're like, I'm never gonna get by. Like, I'm never going to get my feet on the ground. Like, I'm never going to stop living paycheck to paycheck. And that's where I was. I was in what I call survival mode, right? Smiling at my kids, making their days as happy as possible. And then as soon as they're in bed, looking at the numbers, wondering, what can I do? What can I do? Overtime, making meals. I sold things, that I didn't even like want to begin with. Anything that I could sell, I sold. It was really survival mode. I don't know how else to call it, so that's what I call it. So then I finally got my feet on the ground, right, busting my butt and paying all the utilities off. So now everything starts off from ground zero. So I I busted my butt to get to ground zero, right? But that was like the victim mentality. So as I'm reading these things, I'm like, yeah, like I've lived through all three of them. My husband and I were together now for a few years. And so 4 years ago, I'm going to say 4.5 years ago, he finally sat me down. And like I always say, he chased me with that Excel spreadsheet with my budget. So we sat down and we started looking at the numbers, right? And I was coming from a place of fear. I was coming from a place of stress and anxiety because my whole life up to that moment, I'm trying not to get emotional. My whole life up to that moment had a negative effect on money, right? And I tell you, my husband is a blessing in a million ways. He changed my life altogether, and my kids. But anyway, so of course here I am crying again. Um, when we sat down and we looked at our numbers, and I saw that I was $48,000 in debt, right? The debt that I brought into the relationship, then circumstances happened and we had to get two cars. Mine had to be new. His was a certified used, thank goodness. Again, he's a smarter one with the money. And we sat down. That moment was one of the best moments of my life, other than marrying him and my kids, because it was the first time that I was able to face money and know, like, we can do this. Like, we were working together. We were working as a team. And it was like what I call my debt mountain. Like, I don't know how else to call it. I felt like both of us were like clawing our ways up there. But to think that, to sit down and to, for the first time in my life, live in reality and look at what money is coming in, what money can we save, and what money has to go out. Like, that moment was so empowering for me. And for him, it was like a budget meeting with his wife for the first time. But for me, I was like, no, like, that moment changed everything, everything. My mind shifted to like an abundant mindset, even though we were still $48,000 in debt, because it was empowering to know that we can do this. So we looked at the expenses that we had to pay, and we had everything laid out. And then, as I've talked about in my previous video on how we came up with our original budget, we looked at the numbers and I realized, I'm like, no, we could do this. Like, we can lower these numbers. We can lower our groceries. I started calling utility companies and seeing what I can do. And for the first time, again, for the first time, I'm not calling them out of a place of desperation like I was before. I'm calling them out of a place of, we're on a budget, and what can you do for me? Like, what can you do for me to provide the services that we need, but save money along the way? So I have a video on how we first came up with our budget, and all the videos I'm going to refer to, I'll link them down below. So first we came up with our budget, which took us a few months because a budget isn't something that you do once and that's it. Any one of you guys that budgets knows this. You know that it's something they call it some people call it a living, breathing thing. I'm like, no, it's not living, it's not breathing. I don't have to feed it or clothe it or give it a phone. But it is something that has to be flexible. It is something that takes a few months to get to. So I have a video on how we came up with our budget. I have a video on how we were then able to reduce our expenses, and me calling up our utilities and asking them to lower them, come up with a better deal so I don't have to go to a different provider. And I have a video on that, which I still get comments on, and I'm linking them all below. And how we were able to come up with our plan to tackle our budget. And it was the best plan for us. And one thing that I do always like to tell people when I talk about budgeting is that no one formula can work for everyone. There are experts out there that'll tell you so many things. There's so many books, there's so many podcasts, and they're all great and they're all fantastic. But I really feel like you need to do what's best for you. You need to know your circumstances and you need to do what's best for you. And that's why with the way that we came up with how we paid off our debt, which I talked about in a previous video, and I'll link that below, was the best place for us. And so we dedicated then 2 years to the day to pay off that $48,000 of debt, you know. And did we go anywhere? Did we do anything lavish or expensive? Did we do anything at all that required money? Very little, because we really wanted to conquer it as quickly as we possibly could. And that day, December 31st, 2018, to be exact, right before we said Happy New Year, I made that last debt payment, and we still have the mortgage, don't get me wrong, but it's consumer debt. I paid that off. We screamed Happy New Year. It wasn't just, I think the neighbors 3 houses down could hear us because we were just so happy. We're just so happy when we finally did that. So, and I have a video on how we did that as well, and I'll link that down below. So what I wanted to tell you, is that that's what the abundant mindset is. It's finally looking at your finances, whether you're still in debt or whether you're starting to claw your way out of that debt mountain that you have in front of you, and be able to look at it from a positive place. One thing that I did carry with me in all three mindsets was gratitude, because I was grateful that I had a mom that cared for me as much as she did and sacrificed as much as she did to provide us with such an amazing childhood, even though like there was no money being spent. And when I was going through my divorce, and even before then, I had my mom, and I had my two little ones that I had to protect as much as I possibly could. And now they're teenagers; they're 15 and 16 years old. Can't believe it. And I was grateful for them. I'm grateful for my husband and for our little Emily that we have together. Like the life we've built is just something that you can't take that away. Like that to me is like the epitome of being grateful. So no matter where you are, I know what it's like to be paycheck to paycheck. Like I know what it's like to scrape by, to get by. I know what it's like to have a mountain of debt, get out of it, like build up an 8-month emergency fund, which we did before now, when we can finally be happy with the first paycheck just 3 weeks ago now. And we were able to finally put it towards our future, towards our retirement, towards a 529 plans for all 3 kids, you know, and a little slush fund for vacations. So I'm going to get to the comments before I keep crying. Like, oh my goodness, didn't I cry the last time I was by myself? I think I need a guest every week so I stay happy. Let me see. Oh, hi guys. You guys are so great. Okay, so here's one. Beth's roadmap to happiness and financial freedom. She says, I agree. It gives us hope that we can all improve. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I share like what we've been through. And that's why I started my channel, because no matter where you are, there's always a way to improve. Oh, Jan, I love it when she makes comments like this. Absolutely. That is not the forever place. To think that people that don't have um, financial responsibilities, like that attorney I talked about before, that she just had this mentality of like, I'm always going to be in debt. Like, I'm always going to be in debt. And it was just something that she would just say, like in passing, whenever we were talking about our clients' finances. I'm just like, really, really? Oh, hey, Kate. Kate and Steve Young Pine and I were guests of Jan from New York City Saves Money on her show, and we had so much fun. Jan's always so great. Oh, thank you, Kate. She says your mom sounds awesome. Well, you're a mom too, so I know you know how I feel. That moms just do whatever they can to just make you happy, like no matter what, whether you're a single parent or not, whether they have to sacrifice or not. That's just being a mom. So I was thinking, since after talking to Rochelle last week about um, things you could do, like tips to give you to kind of like shift your money mindset, no matter where you are in any of these stages. So one is try not to compare your life to others. Like I believe like that's a big one. Like my mom used to say like comparing yourself to the Joneses, right? So before, of course, the Joneses were your neighbors or like your friends. But now with social media, like the Joneses could be like anywhere around the world, right? Funny story. When we were getting close to paying off our debt, we had a little bit of a slush fund. And I know, like they say, like, don't do that. But I needed something positive to focus on, not only about paying debt, because it was 2 years. So we had a little bit of a slush fund. We were just at a little bit at a time, just knowing that one day we were going to do something to celebrate when we were debt free. And so we booked a trip to Disney. It was literally like it was a few months after we were debt free, but we are like, we can't help it. We really can't help it. So we went to Disney and we had an amazing time. But it was the week before we were going to Disney when I was already thinking about what to pack. And I was on Instagram and I'm in bed and I'm just on Instagram. I'm just flipping through. And my husband comes to bed and I said to him, look at this picture of this yacht. I won't say the name of the celebrity, but there was a celebrity and she was on a yacht. And I was like, look at this yacht. Like, how great would that be? And it was just something that came out of my mouth. Like, I don't normally compare my life to anyone else's. And he says, honey, he's like, I get boat sick. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Even if we had like a gazillion dollars, like we couldn't be on a yacht. He gets boat sick. So that just made me laugh. And right after that, I started thinking about like, the social media that I was following on Instagram, just at night, just like wasting a few minutes of my day. And then I started thinking to myself, like, why am I looking at things that are unattainable? Like things like, even though I really don't care about a yacht, but things that are unattainable, why not take that resource like social media and use it for my, and to benefit me? So I started unsubscribing. And that's what one of the tips I wanted to say. Like I started unsubscribing to channels that either made me like not feel 100% about finances, right? Because no matter where you are in your financial journey, there's always someone that has more than you, right? There's always someone that's living a lavish lifestyle. So I started unsubscribing to a lot of those, and I started subscribing more to personal finance channels and personal finance people that would just do quotes and motivation. And I really felt like even though like I wasn't stalling in my debt-free like journey, like I really felt like it kind of like lit up a fire in me. I'm like, yeah, that's right. Like this quote and that quote, and it sticks with you in your mind. So it kind of like gives you a little bit of that extra motivation. So if you're following anyone or that at all makes you feel bad about where you are financially, click that unsubscribe button. Oh, and by the way, I've been told by my fellow YouTubers here on the channel to if you're liking this video, please click the like button. There you go. I didn't forget this time. Another one that I like to do is when I have a goal is I print a picture and I put it somewhere. Like when we were going to Disney, when I was focusing on paying off debt so we can celebrate and go to Disney, I took a picture of the Disney castle and I taped it to my computer at work. And I just had it there just as a little extra motivation. So when someone would say to me like, hey, you want to order lunch? Like I would just look at that castle and be like, no, I'm good. I packed lunch. Thank you. And if you're paying off debt, what I did to make it a little fun is I printed all of the debts that I had on a big piece of paper and I taped it to the closet in my bedroom that my bed faces right here, right? And as I was paying off debt, I would tear one off, right? I'd tear off another piece of paper from that debt. And it was actually like a visual cue to see, like, okay, like I have 5 more credit cards to do, like 4 more credit cards to do. I tell you, when I tore off that last piece of paper, I felt like I had the Rocky theme song in the back in my mind. I'm like, dun, 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 dun. I was like, I'm a champ. Like I did it. You know, like we did it. We did it. But I'm the one that tore off that piece of paper. So that's really like all I have as far as like the mindsets is just I just want to emphasize that like anyone, no matter where they are financially, if we could do it with 3 kids and 2 middle incomes, like anybody can do this, like anybody can. And just stay positive and be grateful for what you have along the way. That really is the best thing, because again, no matter where I've been and where I am now, like I wouldn't be anything without my family. You know, they're everything to me, and they're my motivation to keep going and keep putting money away towards their college, you know, towards their future, towards our retirement, so we're never going to be a burden on them. And it's just about positive mentality. So like try your best no matter where you are. Reach out to people, like reach out to people. Like Instagram and YouTube are great ways to like they're great vessels to reach out to people. I have people that comment on my Instagram because it's private, no one else can see it. So I get a lot of comments from people that follow me on YouTube, on Instagram, saying to me like, can I'd love for you to do a show on tips for saving money on groceries, which by the way, Jan and I are going to do a collab on my channel next week. I'm really excited about that. And so there's always someone on Instagram, on YouTube. There's channels that motivate you, and Kate's one of them. Jan's one of them, and you know that'll really keep your mind right. So even if you fall into like a negative headspace for a minute, just know that's not a resting place. Just you know, go into your feelings, get out of them, and move on. So let me just go into the comments real quick. Oh my goodness, you guys, you're having your own conversation here about what I'm talking about. That's awesome. Hi, Vita. Let's see. Oh, Steve Young Pine, he's here. He was in the collab as well with Jan and Kate. We had so much fun. Oh, here's Tony Ann. I love her comments. All our situations are the same but different. It's so nice to hear all of your perspectives. Thank you for sharing your lives with us, Debbie and Jan and Kate. Oh, thank you, Tony. You're so sweet. Her comments are always so loving, honestly. That's why we do it. Like that's why when I got through, and I wish I would have done my channel earlier, but when you're digging your way out, sometimes like you know finances can be something that's very personal. But for me, it's like, look, I'm crying for the second time on my channel. You know, it is personal, but at the same time, it could be motivating to someone. So that's my one regret with YouTube. I really wish I would have started instead of when we started building up our emergency fund 2 years ago. I really wish I would have started 4 years ago. So I could have started with my debt-free journey and really shown you like how we did it. So that's why I did videos along, you know, talking about every step that we did to try to help people no matter where they are. But that is my one regret. Let me see. Oh, they're all giving each other motivation. That's so sweet. Oh, you guys, thank you guys so much for watching here on the chat. And I'd love to hear from you to see where you are or where you've been. And please leave comments in the comment section down below. And I thank you guys so much for watching and for being here. And if you guys have any questions about how to meal plan or how to save money on groceries or any concerns you have about your grocery budget at all, please reach out to me either on Instagram or on YouTube and give me some ideas and some questions that Jan and I can tackle next week. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for being here live on the chat. And I'll see you next time. Bye.